Let's get to this week in Trumponomics. Rick Newman is here, and he brought his Trumpometer.
The people have been waiting very patiently for their Trumponomics.
Akiko and I have been waiting very
all that
patiently.
earnings just to get to Trumponomics.
So, what's the story?
What's the story this week?
What is the story this week? Frankly, the market, as we have heard, has been at a standstill.
Yeah.
What news have we gotten that you could actually put into the Trumpometer?
I think the story this week is the dog that didn't bark. The dog is Trump, and he is not talking about the economy. He's not talking about the stock market. He's not driving markets crazy with tweets up and down about what's happening in the China trade deal. He's not criticizing Amazon and Jeff Bezos. He's not even really barely criticizing the media. All he's doing is obsessing over impeachment. And I think this could, in a way...
It was a damaging week on impeachment. There
was a lot of information that came out.
It's basically all he's talking about, and it's getting all the... It's also the only thing anybody in the media is asking him about. So he's not doing his usual thing, which is creating gyrations in markets and in stocks by talking up or talking down companies. We haven't had gyrations in China trade. We haven't had to guess about that. We probably will at some point, but we got a breather from all that this week. So that is last week's reading. We had a bigly last week. Let's see what we have this week.
Oh boy, bigly last week. Rick is dancing. Oh, bigly again. Bigly. So just because...
Listen, I gotta say, go ahead, I'm sorry, Jen.
Just because he didn't do anything,
because he's laying off. And I don't think he's going to continue to do this, but let's take the GM strike, for example.
Sure.
I mean, I've covered the automakers since Trump came into office. He's always getting in the way. I mean, if there were no impeachment, I'm sure he would be yelling at GM about the strike, or he'd be saying stuff about the unions that's not true, and kind of interfering. And they need to get the strike over with. They need to resolve it. And to everybody's relief, Trump is not in the middle of it. I think that's a good thing. I should note, we have never had two biglies in a row before.
Wow.
We have had 2 weeks in a row, and we've certainly had 2 failings in a row. First time we've had back-to-back biglies. I may never say that again.
You know, I'm curious, you talk about Trump not really making any waves. You don't really say much, at least on trade, but that was a pretty hawkish speech that we got from Mike Pence today, going after China, not just on the trade issue, but the most thorniest issues, talking about Taiwan, talking about Hong Kong. Is this just sort of the good cop, bad cop that they're trying to play? Sort of Trump is going to play nice with Xi, while Mike Pence, at least, like the Hudson Institute speech last year, go after China on other issues?
First of all, nobody cares about a speech the vice president gives. It doesn't matter who the vice president gives. The vice president doesn't set policy. He's just sort of inconsequential. I know there were expectations about something big coming out of this speech. I looked at this speech and I thought it was completely out of tune with what we see actually happening from the Trump camp, from the Trump administration. So hand-wringing about the way the NBA has caved to China on that.
Who is he speaking to? Because this is sort of the same tone as the speech he gave last year.
Who was he speaking to? I guess he probably was trying to get half of an ear of Xi Jinping. But, for the Trump administration to say, wow, it's appalling that what they're doing with human rights or civil rights, I mean, that's really kind of a joke, because the Trump administration just doesn't care about that. It doesn't care about that anywhere. And this comes at the same time that they've completely abdicated in Syria and left the Kurds, frankly, to be shot and killed. So this is not an administration that just really cares about the things Mike Pence was talking about today. And I think that this will be a forgotten speech. One person's opinion.
It is interesting. He did tweet about the Fed, but now he's changed the Overton window. Whatever. Now we're like, whatever.
Well,
it doesn't matter. He had negative rates.
Trump is getting what he wants from the Fed. And he's probably going to get more of it, right? He's getting the intervention in the markets that are actually probably helping push interest rates down a little bit. And he's gotten the rate cuts, and he could continue to get them. So I don't think Trump has stopped tweeting about economic factors, period. I'm sure he will come back to it at some point in time. But the shiny object is not the economy or the stock market or trade or the Fed right now. It's impeachment, and we know that's going to be the case for some time. So it's a relief for the markets.
Is there anything on the horizon? I'm trying to think if we would get bigly 3 weeks in a row if he stays quiet, because the Fed isn't, till the end of the month. We are in this.
I can tell you what would do it.
Yeah, what would do it? You tell me.
Resolve the China trade dispute.
Yeah, we're going huge.
Just make a deal.
In the market context.
No, I don't think I would ever give him huge on that because of the arsonist paradox. Trump sets a fire, and then gives him credit for putting out the fire. I will never give him a huge for that. I would give him a huge if he did something genuinely productive for the economy. There could be something, I don't know what it is, but if he wrapped up the trade war and just said, we're done, that might rate a big.
I mean, could you argue, though, that, I know this is based on what Trump himself says, but could you argue that this week was a pretty damaging week when you think about the comments that Mick Mulvaney made? I mean, on the impeachment front, there was some really damning testimony that came out. What does that lead to maybe in the next week? I mean, I just have to imagine that the president's watching all of this. He is chomping at the bit to get in there and respond.
Sure, and he is when he talks to the media outside the White House and so forth. I think everybody's planning scenario should be the House is going to impeach Trump, and the question is, what is the Senate going to do? So conventional wisdom has been, this Republicans in the Senate will stand behind him, and they'll never convict him. It takes 2/3 in the Senate. I don't buy that conventional wisdom. I think the odds of the Senate convicting Trump could be 20 or 30%. He did not help his case with what he did in Syria, which the Republican senators hate, and we don't know what else is coming. So, they say if you're gonna try to kill the king, make sure you do it. And if Republicans get one shot to get rid of Trump, maybe they will. Maybe they'll say, we could throw this guy overboard right now and have President Pence and not have to deal with everything that he's brought into the party and kind of start over. It's not out of the question.
Now you have your Trumpometer news of the week. Akiko, Fujita, Rick Newman, thank you.
Thanks.